All right, Kamuji, give me a countdown.
Okay. Tere kete da ti da na tere kete da ti da na tere kete da ti da.
Va, va, va. All right, welcome to another episode of Absolute Focus. We're all pretty tired today. Our guest had to drive for 2 hours in traffic.
On a hot sunny day.
And we came from a kirtan
With the best langar.
with langar.
So if you don't know what langar is, please tell me.
Yeah, langar is free. So in the Sikh religion, anytime there's sort of a religious service or anything, there's langar, which is free food afterwards. And it's from the days of... Yeah, it's blessed food, and it's from the founder of the religion, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And he... like the idea was that everybody sits on the floor together, and whether you're a king or a peasant, you all eat together, and and nobody will go hungry. And it's probably the coolest part about our religion. You know what I mean? Like Rina Ismail did that thing about interfaith and all that. Like I'm all for it. We're all come from the same place, and like we're all brothers and sisters from the one. Well, we got some good food. Like our religion's got some good food, and they like.
All right, calm down.
Like, you know, like the 7 deadly sins, right? They've got like gluttony.
Yeah.
But if you notice, like our 5 sins, we took out gluttony.
That is true.
Obviously, because we just ate our asses off. There was like 14 things there.
It was really delicious.
Like malai kofta, like they had biryani.
The laid one.
Dal, like garlic naans.
Yeah.
It was like, there's so much food. Yes,
ice cream.
We're eating dessert, and Kwamaji goes, "Are you gonna have which one are you gonna have, rasmalai or ice cream?" I'm like,
"What a mistake!
Which one?
Are you crazy?
How do you think I got
both
this comfortable figure? I go both, right?"
The kids do love that figure.
So we're all stuffed and super tired, but what's gonna wake us up is we have an amazing guest. We're fans of her music. We're going to listen to a couple of her tracks today. We've been following her for years now, and we have a common set of friends. And it's, for some reason, our paths haven't crossed, but today, because of the show, they have. And we're really honored that we have Raashi Kulkarni as a guest today. Thank you so much. Yay!
Thanks for having me.
So, you okay? It was a long drive?
I'm good. I have the best chai. It's my second cup, so I'm great.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, I don't think so. You got your master's degree from USC in music.
I did.
Kamalji's from England. She doesn't know what USC is, right? But I kind of
University
of Southern California.
Okay,
but it's not just that.
It's called a university. It's not college, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like this college. I'm going to college. No, it's actually called a university.
It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Okay. The USC has like a culture, like a camaraderie, and like that your alumni situation is that you guys all connect with each other.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't think other universities have that brotherhood. Like if somebody came up to me and is like, I went to UC San Diego too, and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool.
Right. Well, I mean, I did a graduate program for film scoring, and it was very niche. It's very specific.
Yeah.
And they only takes 20 students a year. So, and it's only a year-long program. So you spend like 24/7 with these students, you know, and you get close because you're all in the same boat. But yeah, I mean, I feel like every job opportunity I got out of school was because of my USC network.
Wow.
So yeah.
So it's something that you're really connected to, and like.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't, I feel like grad school is different than undergrad.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a different energy, different vibe. You're in a different place in your life.
Yeah.
So I mean, I definitely don't have that same like, let's go to the football games or anything.
Yeah.
It was a year-long program. We were always working. But I love all my mentors and my teachers from USC. I'm still in touch with all of them and my classmates, and then students who did the program before me and after me. We're all connected because we're all film composers.
Right.
So in that sense, there's a really great sense of community, which is, it's awesome.
So let's go back a little bit. Like, how did you get started in music?
Oh gosh, like I feel like with all of us, it's like when we're kids, right?
Yeah.
I started taking piano lessons when I was 7, And then I started taking flute lessons when I was 9. And it was kind of just like I loved playing the piano. We had these little dinky keyboards at my house. And before I started taking lessons, I would always go and play them. So my mom one day had come up to me. She's like, "Do you want to take piano lessons?" I was like, "Yeah." And then it just stuck.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I became more serious about the craft. And I was doing recitals, I was doing adjudications, festivals, all sorts of performances.
Wow.
And then when I was 11 years old, I had switched piano teachers. I'm from Maryland, and my piano teacher from the age of 7 to 11 was like, I've taught you everything that I can. There's another teacher in town who I think you should take lessons from. So
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
and
Not all teachers do that.
I know, but so I switched teachers when I was 11, and that teacher had gone to Juilliard, was very strict. She's still teaching. She's 92, and she's still teaching.
Oh, wow.
I just talked to her last week. And she really is the one who pushed me and motivated me. Like, she had me playing Chopin at 11. I played my first piano concerto when I was 13.
Wow.
She was like such a great mentor.
It's so awesome when you find those kind of teachers
Absolutely.
and mentors. 'Cause
Yes.
It makes all the difference.
It makes all the difference. And I feel like the teachers I had growing up, because I'm from a small town, right? And at that time, we didn't have YouTube and we didn't have social
Yeah.
media or anything. But whenever, if they saw something, they're the ones who gave me the platform to perform, for concerts. Like my choir teacher in middle school, she asked me, she had heard me play something. I was like 11 years old. It was like a Chopin nocturne, and I was playing it for her because there was an adjudication coming up where 3 judges kind of, rate you and, judge you on your skills. And then, so I'm playing this, and, I'm 11 years old, and she started crying. So I was like, oh God, like did I do something wrong? And she was like, you play with emotion. And she was like, I want you to play for the spring concert, for the choir concert. I want you to do a piano solo. So in middle school, like every year I played a
So
solo.
wait, what age was this story?
I was 11.
So because that is what we said yesterday when we were listening to music,
Yeah.
was that you play with emotion and that your music has emotion in it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So when we, like in the Indian classical world, sometimes we don't have the words to describe something like that, right? Like they'll just say like kya feeling, kya
Right.
expression, right? Kya expression. Right? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
top with the twang.
But that's what
Yeah.
there's emotion like
It adds, you need that.
so is that something that you like, was it just always there? Did
It's
she
always
show you
there.
how to do that?
No, it was just
suppose you
always.
can't
It's
learn it,
yeah,
can
you
you?
can't. I don't know. It was always there. I mean, I feel like we're all musicians. Like when we're playing our instrument, that's our kind of way of expressing ourselves. And I may not be like the most eloquent person, but when I'm playing my instrument, I feel like I'm like in a totally different world.
Yeah.
The one thing my teacher did teach me was, when you're approaching a piece, and because it's all Western classical music, she would still say like, okay, with a Bach piece, let's analyze this piece. Now we're getting like really nerdy, but okay,
No, that's
let's
fine.
analyze
We're all
this piece.
nerds here.
We have the subject, we have the counter subject. This is a dialogue, and we would literally go through the entire piece and analyze how it's a conversation. Or
Yeah.
if it's like Debussy or Chopin, she's like, picture something, you're telling a story. So I always got into this mindset of like, I need to tell a story.
Yeah.
And then I would just get into my own bubble, and like that's just kind of once you're playing, it's like you're just a different person.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about like some of the tracks we're gonna listen to today. But that's cool that it's been there since age 11.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
suppose
first.
you have that all your life, though. You're born with that feeling.
Yeah, I don't know.
You
if I
can't really
fully
learn
agree,
it,
but-
though.
Yeah, because I mean,
You can enhance
like
it.
so
You can enhance
if you take
it.
my bayan as an example, right?
Yeah.
I kind of like always had that, but then I definitely knew that I had that. So then I hone in on it.
Yeah.
I double down.
Well, yeah.
So
I
is that
mean,
something that you like?
I
You're like,
started-
I got this emotional quality. Let me.
No,
Make it
it's just
amplify it.
it wasn't. I don't know. That's a really good question. Because you never think about it. Because I
Yeah.
do know when I started taking lessons, when I was 7. By the time I was 8, like I have journal entries where I'm like, I want to grow up and be a pianist. And like I love playing the piano, and that was just kind of my way. I have and I still have my cassette tapes where I would press play and record at the same time.
Yeah, those are the good old days. Yeah.
Wow.
And then like today is so whatever date, and this is my song. And of course, yeah, when you're that young, the songs are not as complex. But I think honestly, I do think when I started with my teacher, the Juilliard teacher, she pushed me in such a way that I think it opens your eyes and like, this is wow, like, because these pieces are so complex and so virtuosic, and like Chopin is a romantic composer, so you have to tap into that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's always there, but yeah, if you have great teachers, like.
So what was your training like with her? Was it like, how did you meet with her, or was it daily?
I had weekly lessons, and when I started out with her, it was like 45 minutes because kids' attention spans, I guess, are not that long. And I was also taking flute lessons. I was in band. I was in orchestra, choir, you name it. Yeah. And so it's just every week lessons. And we would go through like 5 pieces a week. And it was all from different periods. So it was like I had to do Baroque, classical, romantic. And then I would do exercises. We would do ear training. We would do theory. It was like very
intense.
intense.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and she would totally know if like I didn't practice one of the pieces, know?
Yeah.
Like,
so it's kind of weird. Like, so we come from a different tradition.
Yeah.
Like we come from the Guru Shishya Parampara. Like, well, we have our one guru, like,
right.
or ustad.
Right.
We never ever leave.
And, but the things you just said
Is what they
happen.
Yeah.
Right. So like ear training or whatever, they like, it's when you're driving them to the airport and you and they say, put this recording on, and then they say something. You don't know that it's a lesson, but it's a lesson.
It's a lesson.
Like when I'm at Carl's Jr. and like, he's eating his crisp cut fries or whatever, like he throws out something and then you're like, oh, that's theory.
It's theory. Yeah.
And then there's like history comes just in conversation because
yeah.
you're around these people.
Yeah.
The time in front of the instrument is like not as
right
as
it is important.
it's important, but the other parts are like what
just
make
as
it as
important.
important. And sometimes they outweigh the other one, right? Because you're only in front of the instrument like for an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
He never sat with us for like 8 hours, right? Like
you have to know the foundation. I feel like it's so important. You have to know theory, ear training, all these things, because that's what makes you, even then when you're composing and creating, and even playing different pieces, you're gonna understand the intricacies of the piece because you know the theory behind it, and you know like where was this composer going with this? So
what was he thinking?
Yeah.
And so, one of the other things you do is you compose. So was that also in the training, or did that?
That was on my own.
That was just natural too.
Yeah, that's something I just loved, going to the piano and like coming up with ideas and just recording them on my tape recorder. Yeah. And then when I was like in 4th grade, they had this school-wide competition, and I composed a piece. And it went to state level, and it was, 4th grade? Yeah, I got 2nd place in the state of Maryland for my piano composition. So I did it again in 5th grade, and it was like, whatever, award of excellence. And I had to handwrite my piano piece. At that time, I'm like, okay, you have your 5, you print out 5 stabs, and hand wrote the composition. So yeah, I always wanted to compose and storytell. Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool.
You need to get Vismad on piano, man.
Yeah, for sure.
If you need a teacher.
Yeah, she loves it. Like she's drawn to the piano and she's drawn to the guitar.
Oh.
So she needs to see people who play.
I miss, that's one thing. I feel like because I've kind of gone into the film scoring career, and I haven't gotten to perform as much, and I definitely missed that. Yeah. So there's a balance. It's
definitely performing is definitely a rush.
It is. Yeah. It's a different experience.
What you come up with on stage, and like once you can sort of feel comfortable on stage, and I still have nights where sometimes I'm not.
Your hands just aren't moving.
But then
everybody.
Then when you do have those moments where you're like, I got this, and
and you just love it. It's such a rush.
Yeah, like that concert we did in San Rafael, there was some things that happened. Like Kamaljeet had a shoulder. The second one.
Oh yeah.
Well, Kamaljeet had a shoulder injury.
Oh,
really?
And she couldn't like lift her arm up. Like I had to comb her hair.
Yeah, he had to comb my hair.
And, she couldn't do anything.
Oh my god.
And so we had all these ideas. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do this. And then now the goal was just
Get
survive.
with the concert.
Yeah.
Just see, like, get through from the like 60 minutes and get through it. That's it.
Right.
Don't worry about what happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Turned out it was one of our best concerts
Yeah.
because we threw out any thoughts out the window, right?
That's true.
And
It's
we were
just,
just like,
let's
let's
just
just
get through
survive.
it,
And
yeah.
then we just like pretty much improvised.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even though we say we improvised, you always like on the drive over, you're thinking
You're
about
thinking
it.
about
You're
Of course.
planning, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes like us Indian classical musicians like to pretend that like it all just comes from the divine.
It's
and
more
all
like what is it? What's
Planned
that
im-
phrase?
planned improvisation.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, it works.
that. Yeah.
And a bit of acting.
So that was one of the
Right.
concerts where our goal was literally like she has to wear this. You had this patch.
I had a heat patch here.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so
and
we're not
patch
thinking about
here.
music. We're thinking of like can we
I
position
could
the
barely,
shawl to cover
Yeah.
it.
I had to wear clothes that I could actually put on.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was like because we put zero thought.
I was insisting that I have to do this concert because I'd been planning, and I was like, I have to do it. It's gonna be so awesome.
I was going to ask, why did you, like,
Why did I
why'd
do
you
it?
put
And we
yourself-
don't. Did we? We were just excited to play it, and I could not do it.
Right.
I would have it would have hurt me even more than the injury.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
But you
I
got
have
through
to
it.
do
But
it.
you got through it.
Yeah, we drove up. It
Yeah,
was really
it was
hard
in
for
the
me
very
to sit in the car. It was ridiculous.
Oh my
we
God.
got there.
but because we put no thought into the music,
Yeah.
like it
You just did your thing.
The training took us like
Absolutely.
yeah. I couldn't play very fast, but it was clean.
Right.
The
and then
training took over.
you went more emotional.
Yeah.
Like
That-
you were like
that's amazing.
You
I was
were
like,
like
I
forget the
can't-
speed. Like let's just go emotional.
Because sometimes
Yeah.
you just think about technique and like,
You're
I
right.
need to get this perfect. It has to be the syncopation has to be perfect. 3 into 4 has to fit perfectly. But
Right.
now I was like, I don't even care.
Right. No, and you know what? That's one thing is like when you're performing in front of people, they can feel when you're
Yeah.
putting your
Oh,
emotion
yeah.
into it. That's what I'm like love because
Yeah.
it's like that direct.
Yeah.
Because I mean, film is great too. Like obviously you're storytelling and you're enhancing that story, but it's just a different experience when it's live. And you
Right.
can
Yeah.
like feed off of, and also when you're
Absolutely.
jamming with other musicians, like that's the
Yeah.
best feeling on stage.
Yeah, that's
it
really
feels
cool.
So
good.
they're both different. I mean, they're both really great, but they're just different experiences.
yeah, and they're both
Absolutely.
different skill sets, and
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
we're
Absolutely.
trying to learn both. Yeah,
Yeah, we're all learning.
Yeah. So you had all this experience when you were young.
Yeah.
Then you were trying to get an economics degree. So how
I
did?
would- I don't know if I was like okay, look, we all have Indian parents.
Right. I'm a software engineer.
See? Okay. No, I mean, you know, growing up, I was very, again, like strict about practicing and about my craft. My piano teacher wanted me to go to conservatory, and I actually did prepare to go, and I auditioned at conservatories, but I was looking at programs that had universities, like they were like affiliated with universities, because, you know, it's, okay, when you're doing music, and especially when you're born and raised here, our parents, they don't necessarily know that you can do this as a career. You know, they're just
And it's
they're-
still it's hard. It's a risk. It's hard.
a risk, and
A lot of our
Just a
friends
career.
like struggle.
right. I mean, yeah. So it wasn't out of you know, anything except they want to make sure their kids are okay.
That you're covered.
So
Absolutely, yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I went to GW. I got a piano scholarship there, so that's why I wanted to go there, and I wanted to be in a city. But I even at that time, I was looking at film scoring programs at different schools.
Yeah.
But my parents were like, "Look, music will always be with you. Why don't you get a degree? And it's like a backup. You know, you never know." And so I had taken an economics class. And I was like, "This is interesting," you know. And I thought I could apply that, you know, the business side of things to, because I knew eventually I wanted to do music.
Yeah.
But I was like, I mean, I learned so much.
Might as
So,
well
So
It's
did
like
have
help you.
you been using that? Like,
no.
does it help?
I haven't used the degree per se.
No, but I mean in your music sort of dealings, and because that's a nasty side that we all hate.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, in that sense, yeah, it has helped. I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, you want to be well versed and you want to be well read in all fields, or as many fields as you can be. So it was just a good subject to study.
Yeah. But like, so when you have to negotiate a contract for this blah 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 film, can you use those skills or?
I think that's a little bit different, and also I graduated like, you know, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But at that time, I feel like it was
Because that's the stuff we all suck at.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough.
We're like, yeah, whatever.
I just want to play.
I just want to play, right? Yeah. No, it's tough, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, you seem to be doing all right for yourself, so it must have helped.
I mean, it was good. I will say this. I feel like in life and whatever we do, whatever paths we take, you still end up where you're supposed to be. So like, because of the economics degree, I was able to like use those skills, and it just gets you to the next thing. Even though I'm not like proactively using the degree.
Yeah.
It all helps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a software engineer. I know, like, my computer skills help with like all this
See?
Definitely.
self-promotion and all this stuff.
Yeah, all
Although
that.
sometimes I can't start Instagram. I have a master's degree in computer science. I
Same.
can't figure this social stuff out.
Same. That's a whole other beast.
Yeah.
That takes too much time, man.
It takes so much.
So let's listen to one of Raashi's tracks. Let's listen to Yatra from her latest EP.
And I'm gonna drink my chai.
And we're back. That was Yatra from Raashi's EP. And that was a gorgeous track. It featured
Lovely.
Max ZT, who's Kamalji's Gurubai.
Yay,
He's an
Gurubai.
amazing dulcimer player, but he's also learned from Shivji.
Yeah.
It has Shankar Tucker, who's like
An awesome player himself.
a clarinet player. And we were just talking about emotion. He's another guy that
Yeah.
Plays
he goes all
also
in with
emotion,
in emotion.
It gets you.
Yeah, it gets
Yeah.
you. It hits you in the heart, brings out those tears. That's what
That's the
we're
point
drawing
of music, I
to.
think.
That's what we're drawn to.
Right?
If you don't
That-
cry, there's
yeah.
just no point.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you.
Where you get the hair
The
stand up.
goosebumps,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
like,
And then Jomi George played tabla.
yeah, Jomi George is another great guy.
Yeah.
And Shankar's like following Harji like just amazingly.
Yeah.
So tell us about that track. Like, how did it come about? Like, I mean,
Oh, gosh.
your playing is wonderful, and the whole
Well, thanks.
the composition is beautiful. Like the way it's arranged is beautiful.
Thank you. Oh gosh. I mean, so this was part of my debut EP, and Yatra means journey.
Yeah.
And I had written this song actually when I was in grad school. And I was just, I feel like anytime you're going through a certain circumstance or experience, you kind of go to your instrument and you just start like jamming and improvising.
Yeah.
And so I had come up with this theme, like the da 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 da. I'm not gonna sing it, but yeah, I don't know. I was like, I want to play harmonium on it, and I just started to build around that theme. And then I was like, okay, but it's missing something. Like, that's why I had asked Shankar and Max, like, if they can come in and like fill it out. And I don't know, it's just supposed to be an uplifting song. And the one thing, this is like a kind of a nerdy thing, with all the other tracks on my EP, there's like a definite like ending.
Yeah.
On this one, it just fades out because it just keeps going because it's a
the
journey.
journey's not gonna end. We're still on that journey.
So exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just one of those uplifting tracks.
So when you work with other musicians, so like Shankar and Max and all these guys on this track, do you write their parts for them? Do you let them improvise? Do you work with each other?
Both. Like, I always have a very clear idea of what I want.
Yeah.
So I will write out the music and the themes. And then, like for the alap, I'll say, do your thing, and then I'll come in. But yeah, I do write out all the scores
That's
and
great.
notation. But yeah, no, of course. I mean, that's the beauty with Indian classical music, is there's room for improvisation.
Yeah.
So that, like, even at the end, that's when he does. You let the musicians do their thing too. You never want to take away from that.
Yeah. No, we appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So do you have any Indian classical training?
I took lessons, but I would say I wouldn't call myself like an aficionado. I would say Western classical is my forte. But yes, I studied Indian classical. I studied, all different genres, jazz, just because you want to be well versed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would call myself a Western classically trained
Yeah.
musician.
So do you think of rags or?
I started to only when I started like working on my own stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll like sing something into like a voice memo, and I start thinking, okay, this could be Yaman. Okay, yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Because when you when you think of it in the Western, we're like, oh, this is Lydian, you know, like it's different.
Yeah, so we don't understand
right?
any of those terms.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard them. I forget which one Lydian is.
I mean,
in
we'll
the
fake our
modal-
way through
in the
it, like
modal
in a
thing.
session. But
Yeah, no, I mean, it really depends on what I'm composing. If I'm composing where I want it to be very Indian based, then I think in terms of the rock because there are rules, right?
Yeah.
So, but if it's something else, then, or if it's like a fusion, then you can kind of
Do your
blur
own
the
thing,
lines
yeah.
a little
right.
bit.
I mean, we build those lines all the
Right?
all the
time.
time, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like more and more like you hear music that's, which I actually love. I love fusing different genres together. So I love, you know, incorporating like elements from Western classical, Indian classical, jazz,
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
I mean, so we experiment with like all different genres, and our kind of rule is like, does it sound good?
right.
So people have this thing that like fusion is bad, especially in our Indian classical world. I
Yeah.
think on the Western side, people are okay with it, but
Yeah.
that fusion is bad.
the
But
best
they
you
don't
can ever
understand
do.
that like fusion has been going on forever.
Forever.
Khayal music
Exactly.
is
Fusion.
fusion.
Even
Like
in Bollywood
our
films,
tabla
you'll
music
hear,
is like tabla is a fusion instrument. Like
Yeah.
it's all fusion. Like
Yeah.
Ustad Amir Khan, who's like the god of Indian classical vocal, is fusion music. If you think of it like that, it pulled in the Persian influences and like it broke the Drupad and like it's that's our job is to just keep pushing.
Pushing,
Right.
Push,
innovating.
I think it's so
And then
great.
there's like good. There's good music and there's bad music. That's what it
That's
comes
about
down
it.
to.
Right. Right. I agree. I mean, yeah, again, I think it's like, you know, you pay respect to the style, but
Yeah.
you should always be pushing the boundary a little bit.
And the greatest artists
Always do that.
always do
Yeah.
I
that.
always see they've pushed the envelopes in
Yeah.
their own craft and the wider craft as well.
Well, and like that's what we were saying earlier is like as musicians, we never want to peak. We want to always be growing and learning and getting better and, you know, taking in what's around us. So, I mean, why would we just stay in one place and do only one thing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question. Is so like you have this Western training in composing and piano
Yeah.
playing and flute, but you've worked with Bollywood composers. You worked with Vishal and Shekhar.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
how was that experience?
It was super cool. And it was so, like, I'll never forget that experience. And I just like was, I'm so awkward.
No, that's cool.
So what happened was they were looking for a keyboardist for their U.S. tour. Something happened in India, they were coming to the U.S. And my name got referred to their manager, and someone had sent one of my YouTube videos, and so the manager heard it and we're like, okay, let's hire her. So they sent me like 50 songs, and I
Yeah.
had to learn them all by ear
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
in a day.
That's how we
And
roll.
that's how yeah. And but like the thing is, I've been listening to Vishal Shekhar's music for years, like since the
Okay.
very
Yeah.
beginning. So I like knew most of the
Yeah.
songs. And but yeah, I prepped like that entire, it was like, you know, all day listening and making sure I know every song, because for keys, you're the one doing all the chords and the chord changes. And then we did 2 shows. We did one in New Jersey and one in San Francisco, close to San Francisco, and it was such an incredible experience. Those musicians are so incredible. Like yeah. So I mean, Vishal and Shekhar are so, I mean, they're like,
Yeah, the
Pretty much
Bollywood
up there,
top.
yeah.
Yeah.
right. So, and they were super kind, and it was
So how many cities did you do?
it was 2 cities.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was like back to back. But I mean, I will not forget that experience
That's
because
cool.
because that's really being put on the spot. Like
Yeah.
you need to know your stuff and you need to know the songs. And you know, when we were on stage too, like I still remember they, you know, like switched the order of something, and you have to be on it.
Of course.
Because there's like everyone's in the audience. So, but it was a great experience. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I saw like that you got to like open for Obama somewhere.
Oh, it was at oh gosh, I was in college. It was for the inaugural ball when he had
Wow.
gotten elected. And it was one of the inaugural balls in Washington D.C. So I had played piano there. That was one thing. I mean, going to school in D.C., I wanted to be in a city, and it was such a great experience because like the city gives you opportunities that you wouldn't
You don't get
have
anywhere.
elsewhere. Yeah.
That's cool.
It
So
was-
what did you play there?
I don't even remember. It was
That's
a
cool.
very long time
How
ago.
long did you play?
It was like, you know, 5 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like one piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's still great.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was cool. It was
Because
cool.
there's like two ways we do some of these gigs, right? Where like we did that Elysium thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you tell a story like especially to like Indians.
Yeah.
They go
Speed it up.
crazy.
Right.
You're like basically Obama's like agenda came from Raashi's piano. Like,
Okay.
like
how
this,
you do it
this
in the
like you
Indian
know you have that
context.
telephone game where you tell someone a story and then it keeps
Tell
changing
us
over
the
time.
story.
Keeps
How the Indian
changing.
would tell it. Please tell us Rashi's story. How Punjabi would tell you.
Like I mean I can tell our Elysium story.
Oh yeah. Tell that in the
Like we
in the Punjabi way.
well let me first say what happened. We played it's this what's it called? The Art of Elysium
The Art of
fundraising dinner.
Elysium yeah.
Something like that. We did a small set, like 15, 20 minutes with Ginger Shankar on double violin, her on santoor, me on tabla. And it's Linda Perry's being honored. So she wrote Christina Aguilera's Beautiful. Everybody is there. Like Elijah Wood, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, like Steven Tyler.
Yeah, he was singing.
The Westworld girl, she sang a song.
3 barrels. She's got a 3 a name. I can't remember any of the names. So.
She's the star of Westworld. We need to ask Amrita.
Auckland.
There's like it was just the whole place is celebrities. Like
Yeah, it was just
normal
jam-packed
people can't
of-
get it.
Right.
Mark Mothersbaugh was there, and I was such an idiot. That's a sort.
You were, yeah.
Fanboy.
No, we didn't actually know what he looked like.
I didn't know who he was. Like I didn't know that he looked like that. He just
Right.
came up to us and he was like, "Hey, that was really gay." He took her number because he's like, "Oh, maybe I'll use Santur one day." And then he started talking about like how he thinks it's great and that we should go adopt Indian children and like it was just really
He
weird.
went off on a strange tangent, and he was like, because somebody was calling us
yeah,
as well.
somebody was calling us that we had like
We
we
have
had
to
to
go
go
in now.
inside.
We won't be able to get in.
And he's chatting to us.
I'm like,
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
So all these celebrities like come up to you and they're like, "That was great," right? And then some of them take your number,
Right.
And it doesn't mean anything, right? Johnny Depp called her beautiful.
Hey.
Yeah,
took a picture.
yeah, and so that's the story. There's a small 15-minute stuff, right?
This is an actual
15-minute
story.
set. People say you're great, but then
Right.
they don't. That doesn't mean anything. That's just their way of saying whatever, right? Where's the
Just
food?
something. Yeah. That was great. Okay, thank you.
No, they wouldn't say a good job.
Now, when I tell this story like to Indians,
It's a whole different.
It's different.
ballgame.
wait, so I can't. How do I do this? Like,
Wait, how do you do it in non-Punjabi?
yeah, I have to do this
You
in
can do
Punjabi.
it. You can do it.
Can
Yeah.
you? Like,
Hey, I'll
do
learn
it in
a bar or
Punjabi.
two.
then
Do you
I'll
understand?
translate.
Yeah, I do you know how many Punjabi friends I have?
So if I do this story in Punjabi, I would be like, "Baji ਅਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ perform ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਪੂਰਾ Hollywood ਬੈਠਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ like that all of Hollywood was sitting there just to listen to us and then they all came up to us and they said क्या कहने क्या बात जवाब ही नहीं है like right.
Oh my god.
So I use the same words.
You did.
But the emphasis changes.
hilarious.
And then so like this happens a lot like with musicians. You'll hear them
Not
tell
just
stories
Punjabi,
of
just
like
in general.
oh like
no,
the
it's all Indian.
yeah. Like cuz
Always
yeah, they some
musicians.
of them do crazy gigs like oh I played at the UN the Nobel Peace Prize thing or whatever,
Which
right?
they do.
And like that they're just filling up a slot. Like yeah, it's an honor. Like
Right.
I would love to go, right? It's an honor. But again, you're just filling up a slot.
I mean, yeah.
You're not there to get a Nobel Peace Prize. The other guy is.
Right.
But then they'll make it seem as if like,
They were all that serious.
yeah.
Of course.
And I mean, I'm sure it happens on the Western side too.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but
that's
it's just funny.
hilarious.
These things happen, like they show up on our resume, and then we have to include them in our bios, because if I said like, oh, we played Rag Buri at the Nashri in Japtal and it was the greatest performance ever, they're like, yeah, who cares? But like like Elijah Wood came, like Lord of the
Right.
Rings dude, the Hobbit dude came up to me and said that was great.
Right.
That's in the bio.
I mean, sure. Why not?
That and then that's all people will remember about you.
Yeah.
Right? They don't care about the other stuff.
The actual stuff.
Yeah, this industry's funny sometimes.
Yeah.
It is.
We're all storytelling.
It's all storytelling.
So you also let's change topics again. You did some music for a PBS series, the Me Too
Last
Now
year.
What?
Yeah, that was my first television credit as a composer.
Oh wow!
Which was
And
super
PBS is great.
exciting. Yeah.
And that's
was-
a very relevant
Yeah,
movement.
very
It is.
relevant.
And it's crazy again with this industry. It's all like through reference. I had done a project with somebody, then that person referred me to someone else for something else and then someone else. And then that person referred me for the PBS show. And it was like a 5-episode series. And I mean, they tackled a lot of serious issues, but you know, I mean, it's not like the score was the forefront of the.
Right.
It's a background score, but it was such a great experience to be able to compose for that and say, you know, that's my name there in the credits.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I mean, we still get like whenever you see your name in the credits, like it's
It's pretty
Still
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and I mean, like I've been working now in television for over 2 years, but that was the first one that was like composer, you know? So it was cool.
Yeah, and then the fact that it was like, you know, for the Me Too movement.
Yeah. I mean, and because I watched the episodes and I mean, it's sometimes it's really hard to watch those discuss or listen to those discussions, but I think it's so important because it's, you know, it's providing a voice to people who may not be able to talk about those issues. So so it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, in our Indian classical world, I mean, maybe we're getting a bit serious now, but
It's okay.
This discussion needs to happen.
This discussion needs to happen. It hasn't hit yet.
Yeah.
And I, as a third party, know of stories. You know, like a rumor, like so and so did this, so and so did that. Those are third party. Then I also have where like I know the victims directly, and they've told me stories. So that's what, second person.
Yeah.
But then it's not my. I don't think I'm I'm supposed to say anything.
Hey man, I'm first person.
Yeah.
Happened to me.
Yeah.
It's bullcrap, this whole industry.
But for some reason, it hasn't hit the Indian classical world.
It did a bit the South Indian, right?
So Carnatic, the Carnatic got hit, and they took action. Like there was.
Oh wow.
They took action. They canceled a bunch of festival performances.
I did not
said
know
that
that.
you were banned from these festivals to people that had been accused, and there was. But it's so. Like I think in the West, there's like, you know, a producer or a director, or like a superior officer or whatever it is. In Indian classical, there's like your ustad and like your guru. So that relationship is
completely different.
even harder, yeah. And then like there's the other musicians that you work with, and then like the whole notion of respect to your elders and whatnot. But yeah, it's a conversation that should happen.
And I'm sure it's like difficult to navigate. You know, I've
Yeah.
never had like I've never had that kind of experience.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's such a difficult topic to tackle. And then also
culture as well. Culturally,
yeah.
Yeah, like
think they
I mean, I
tried
think
Me
she
Too.
only told me her story
last year.
yeah, last year, because we were booked for a gig and I said yes, and the guy that was doing the first half, there's a story there with Kamaljeet.
Yeah.
And so I said, do you want to cancel the gig? Like, you know, we can cancel. And this is pre the sort of the movement. And so I said, do you want to cancel the gig? And she's like, hell no, like he'll win then. So we went and destroyed there.
Yeah,
We
good.
did.
And
Good.
like
In
she
the
played
right
with
way.
fire there. But
This discussion still.
part of me wanted, like, you know, had
We
Me
would-
Too
we
happened,
would- yeah.
I think it would have been different on that gig. I think we would have just announced it on stage or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean,
But it's super hard, like, because
It
then
is.
we would be blacklisted, but then who cares? Like, you know,
yeah.
not that famous, and like, we're
No,
not gonna get that famous.
You know, at the end of the day, what I've realized is there's one instance, and I'm being so candid. One instance where there was a guy who was making very inappropriate comments, and it was for a show, and I literally, like, you know, when someone says something to you,
You're
you
in
like
shock.
yeah, exactly, and I wasn't expecting it because I
Yeah.
was like hired for a show and like for my craft, and
Yeah.
I was so taken aback by the comment that it took a few seconds for me to like collect myself, and I just remember saying, this is not okay. And I left and I went to the higher up and I said, look, I was hired here for a job and
Yeah.
I'm doing my job. You need to fix this.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that this man does not talk to me like this. And then he later apologized because and you know what? I did a damn good job at that.
Yeah, you did.
You know, but like I think it's like finding the balance of like, you know, can you stick up for yourself and say something, but there's so many instances where you can't say anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the whole Me Too movement is so important, because I feel like there are a lot of people who are like either afraid they can't say something, or they just actually are unable to say anything. And that's why, I mean, even like that, doing the series in whichever capacity, as even as a composer, I was glad to be connected to that series.
Yeah, because you're
this
on
is
the
an
good side of
issue.
it. Yeah.
This is an issue, and it needs to be, it definitely, there needs to be a conversation, a dialogue, but even more so, there needs to be some consequences for these actions. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the issue, and it shouldn't be that the victim is blacklisted or whatever. It's but again, it's a mentality thing, and I feel like
Yeah, I
the
mean,
conversations are helping.
At that time, Me Too hadn't happened.
Right.
It hadn't really
Same with
broke.
same.
And so we didn't even. I mean, I'm not
Who to
speaking
even
for,
tell?
like
Right. Who
we
would
didn't
even
think it was an
listen?
option
Right.
to
Yeah.
like do anything or say anything. It was either cancel the gig or do the gig.
Right.
And then now, in hindsight, I think we should have just like announced it from stage or
Yeah, we
something,
should
or
have done,
scream from the
It's
rooftops.
okay. I mean, I feel like you go through life, and you learn from each experience, and you know what, maybe you weren't supposed to say something at that time, and that's why
Yeah.
you didn't. But I think it's good that the conversations are happening now.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do our part to sort of keep other people away from
Totally.
that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a rough topic, and
It's
for
really-
some, and I don't know why it hasn't hit our industry yet.
I don't know.
Like
if
it's
it
like
would-
we live in a bubble or something.
I don't know if anyone would even listen, because it's just culturally, right?
I would listen.
Yeah, but you're from here. The Indian classical
That's
world,
true.
it wasn't born here. It was born in India, and there's lots of hierarchies in families, and the way you speak to people. You said we've got to
Yeah.
respect this so and so and that so and so, just because. So you can't even like. Some
I would-
people
yeah.
can't even talk to their husbands by
I
saying
mean, we
their
have
name.
we have a daughter, so I wouldn't ever want her to feel that she would have to like suppress her story or whatever.
But I feel like now more than ever is like it's a good thing that, because remember years ago, people couldn't even have these conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's a step in the right direction.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's take a break from such a serious topic. We made it a big U-turn there.
We did.
Or a big turn there. Let's listen to. This is probably the perfect track to get us out of this mode.
Which one?
Let's listen to Zen,
Okay.
because we need some Zen right now. And we're back. That was Zen from Raashi's EP. That was
beautiful.
I love that track.
Thank you.
Like that when I heard that for the first time last night, it made
Kinda
me
well
tear
up.
up.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I did too.
It's so beautiful. Like, and what I like about it is the layers of like the strings, the voices, the Raginder, or the violin player, he's awesome on it. But you keep it just like emotional and I don't want to use the word simple,
Yeah.
but like
But
it's simple.
They're simple.
You're not
it's
doing like
simplicity.
thons. You're not doing like any
because
like,
it's Zen.
yeah, it's Zen.
You're supposed to be Zen.
Yeah, this is the music I like. Like,
Nice.
I
Me
love
too.
this stuff.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, so we talked about earlier, like what we're drawn to is the music that makes you cry.
I mean, same. I mean,
Yeah.
and even with like piano pieces that I would play, I would be playing like a Chopin, I don't know, etude or something, and I would be crying at the end of it because you're kind of putting everything you
Yeah.
have into it. So I actually wrote that one when I was. I mean, okay, I think all musicians go through this where it's very up and down, and you feel really privileged that you can do this as a job and everything, but there is a lot of up and down and a lot of up and down emotions.
Yeah.
And I wrote that during a time when I was like, okay, you know what, whatever happens, it's all gonna work out. So then I created Zen.
No, it's I mean, you say that story, but like, yeah, there is like,
There's a progression.
There's a progression, and then there's like hope,
Yeah.
and it is telling a story. I love that. I want to hear more like it.
Okay, second album. I can't wait.
When is that coming out?
I don't want to say
You don't
the
know yet?
date, but I'm aiming for this year
Okay,
because
this year?
Yeah, because I feel like if I keep delaying it, you know, we're all
It's not
artists, and
gonna
we're like, oh,
happen.
it's
Yeah.
not good, you know.
I can do it better.
I can do it better.
You should hear our story about our
Oh
album.
my god, we have so
Jeez.
many tracks we haven't finished because like
See?
we're gonna get better. Oh, I can do this so much better now. And,
This is, I think, a perennial
We
problem.
just did so she like we just did a track with Jesse Bannister.
Okay.
He's a
Yeah,
saxophone player from the UK,
player in
and
UK.
another again just like pure emotion.
yeah,
Right.
awesome.
So she does all her bits, and then she sends she made the composition and everything, and she sent him to record a saxophone solo on top, and plus do a little layering underneath.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it comes back, and she's like,
You know what? I
I'm
do this
I'm
solo
starting
again.
over.
I'm gonna do it again.
I've been there.
she's like, his solo was so good
blew me
that
out the
she's
water,
like,
man.
Right.
I can do it now. I can do it.
yeah, she's
7
like, that
years
was
in.
recorded a couple years ago, like, or a few years ago. Like, I can do it now. Now that I've had like kids and like I have
Right?
a different perspective on life,
Yeah.
I can redo it.
That makes a difference too,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Oh,
That,
for
like,
sure.
you
Oh,
know,
for sure. Our whole life has changed,
Right?
Completely since
Yeah.
children.
Since you've had kids.
and our music is different. Like our preparation, our riyaz, it's all different.
different.
so different.
Yeah, but I think that's again what we were saying is like
Yeah.
you want to keep evolving as
Yeah.
artists. You never want it to stay because then it becomes stale.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited because the next album is going to be it's going to be very piano heavy, very emotional, and I'm going to of course incorporate live instruments, but also like electronic. I'm not gonna say anymore. You'll
Well,
have to
when
hear it when it comes out.
You'll have to come back and we'll have to listen to it on the show.
Yeah,
It's
promote it on the
Thank
show.
you.
You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks, guys.
And then if you need some emotional santur on that album,
Now that I've met you guys, like I can, I'm excited. Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna
We
be
have a home
calling you guys.
studio. It's all good.
Fantastic.
so you have another project I think that's debuting. Well, by the time this airs, it'll have
be out.
debuted. But you have something on the CW.
I do. So the CW, I work on this show called Legends of Tomorrow, and I work with composer Blake Neely and Daniel James Chan. They both composed the score for Legends of Tomorrow. So Legends of Tomorrow is part of the Arrowverse with Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl.
Wow.
So I've been working with Blake for over 2 years, and so this last season of Legends, I've been writing additional music, and so this was back in October, early October. They were saying that they're going to do a Bollywood musical number. So then Daniel approached me and said, "Hey, is this something you'd be interested in doing?" And I was like, yes,
Yeah.
this is what I do. This is what I know. So I demoed, I sent some of my music, and I got the job. And it was a very fast turnaround because it's an act. And I can say this now because it'll be out by then, but it's an entire act. So not only is it the song, but there's dialogue embedded in between. So when I was creating the song, I had to structure it in a way that there are musical interludes that are long enough for the dialogue. So the director would be like, I need 20 seconds of music while these people are talking during this section. So then I had to be like, okay, how many measures of music is that? How can I make it a musical phrase so that it goes to the next section? So it was like kind of like a math puzzle. And then, with Bollywood songs, it's like, Bollywood songs are not like just 4 chord progressions. They're very complex. So, right. So when I was doing this, they said they also wanted like the producers and the writers were saying like, don't, we want it to also be kind of Broadway pop Bollywood. I was like,
Yeah,
this
you
is,
gotta mix it all.
and because it has to appeal to a mass audience. Right. So that was fun because that's kind of, I also, in middle school and high school, I was in the pit orchestra for musicals. I would accompany my sisters. Like, it was like all stuff I've grown up with.
Yeah.
So I'm rambling, but
No. It's interesting. Yeah, keep going.
so we, I structured it because then they were shooting it. I had to record all the actors. They Skyped in from Vancouver. And then I like comped their best takes, and I had like an outline of how it's going to be. It was good enough for them to dance to and like record the episode. And then after that, I had time to finesse and like, play in whatever I wanted. Then I started orchestrating for the orchestra. We had strings 2 woodwinds, and then I hired Raginder on violin, Robin on tabla, and Rajiv on sitar.
Cool.
And then we recorded at Capitol Records. It was and
She
it,
did a session there with
The Jungle
for
Book.
the Jungle Book. Yeah.
it's the cool, isn't it the
Yeah, it
coolest
was
venue?
very
Check this out. Like they put this mic over Kamaljit Santur.
Oh my God, I
Like
sounded
it's like
amazing.
literally up.
Yes.
It's like
Jesus
up,
Christ, it's all the way up
It's like
there.
up, way up there.
I was like,
And she's like,
tuning. Dun, 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 that's a bit high.
yeah.
isn't it?
And then I was like,
He was in the room.
so I'm in the control
Right.
room, and I was like, what kind of mic is that? And then he gives me the name. I forgot it now. I Google it.
Yeah.
Right.
like
I Google
25
it,
grand.
and it was
Right.
like $45,000 mic.
Right. It's
And
insane. It's
man.
insane how, I mean, but it's the room is so great.
Yeah,
and the
like
mic,
because
of
the
course,
experience was,
Yeah,
and then
it's
it
gorgeous.
sound, and then Neelamjit had like done the strings, I think, or he was the Indian consultant for the strings. I forget
Yeah.
his exact title, but they were playing like this like 60-piece string, and it was like gorgeous.
Lush.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then the way it sounded in the control room,
Right?
oh my
It
god!
was so.
That room
it's
was
an
amazing.
experience. This was like kind of it was like a milestone for me because it was the first time I was conducting my original song on that
Wow.
stage, and my mom came,
wow.
and we recorded the soloist a little bit earlier in the week, and so it was just such a process from beginning to end because there's so many moving parts, and this is the first time they've done a Bollywood number. So it's when it airs, I hope people like it, but it was,
No, that's awesome.
it
We're all
was
looking
so
forward
fun.
to it.
It was so
Yes.
fun. And it's like when you've grown up on Bollywood and you know how the riffs are, and you can add that in.
Did you have like a particular like influence that you were trying to model it off of in Bollywood, or just sort of the general?
No, I didn't want to listen to anything. I just
Okay.
had the script. So when I was reading the script, I would go through the lyrics, and there was a specific kind of cadence when I was reading it. So that kind of became my cadence. And then I just went to the piano and I started, following the lyrics and just playing and jamming, and I whatever felt right, then I started to build off that. And then once you have the structure down at the piano, then you go and you start programming all the instruments in, and that's where you kind of flesh everything out. I think that takes the longest time, but then you just start playing around with different sounds and different instruments. And because I've worked on the show, this is my 3rd season working on the show, I didn't want this song to like sound like completely different.
Oh, okay. You wanted it to be related.
I wanted it to, because, Blake and Daniel have created a certain soundscape for the show. So I pulled in some of those sounds in the song so that it sounds like a Legends song. So it's exciting. Let's see what happens.
No, we're all
It'd
excited
be
too.
awesome.
I want to
Yeah.
see it. Yeah. We're really looking forward to it.
April 15th on the CW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we should wrap up the
radio part.
yeah. So thanks for tuning in on Ruckus Avenue and Dash Radio. We can continue a little bit overtime for our podcast.
Yep.
But before we do that, Raashi, why don't you tell us where people can find you?
Oh God. Okay.
Do you remember? I never remember.
I mean, you mean just like online?
Social media
Yeah.
or
It's all, all the same stuff. Like my website, it's RaashiKulkarni.com, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud,
same.
iTunes, Spotify. I think it's the
Raashi
same.
Kulkarni. Cool.
Same for everyone.
And then you guys can look us up at absolutefocus.co, and all our social media handles are there. So thank you very much, Raashi, for coming.
Thanks
It
for
was a real
having
pleasure.
me.
Okay, we're back in like our overtime for our podcast.
Welcome.
So yeah, like you're working for Blake Neely. Like, what is that like? So where you going into an office? You're going into a studio?
It's
Where
a
are you
studio.
going?
Yeah, he has a private studio, and
And you got a desk? What, you got a
Yeah,
computer?
yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah, I have my own room, my own rig, and that's where I work all day. My little bubble.
What's in your rig? What are you using?
I don't know if I can give like all the secrets away.
Okay.
But I work in Logic
Okay.
at work and also at home, and in Pro Tools, and then Ableton whenever we need beats or whatever.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You use, we do all our stuff in Logic.
Yeah.
Because we don't have enough time to.
Do you like Logic? I always ask people like, do they like Do they like the DAW that they're using?
So I've used Cubase and I've used Pro Tools. So the Pro Tools that I use seemed outdated to me. That's probably because I was in a crappy studios. I don't remember which version it was.
I've
Like
never
it was
used
at the
anything apart
studio
from
at,
Logic.
well, I shouldn't say it, at the university, but it was the studio at our university, and coming from Logic X, and then I went back to Pro Tools, and I was like, this is terrible. But it was probably because the university didn't upgrade. I liked it. I think they're all the same.
Yeah.
Like the one that you get good at, do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I use Logic because that's what I've been using, but I've used all of them. I feel like there's different things in each DAW that's like, you know,
Yeah.
this is, you know, like,
For this,
yeah,
something's
like
good for that.
Cubase is good for this, like, you know, Logic is good for this, but yeah, they're all the same.
And I don't think we ever got to a place that we're so good. Like I've seen the guys that don't use the mouse because they
know all the
know
shortcuts.
they
Right.
just like, you know, left
Right. At work, that's
Yeah.
how I am because like we
Yeah.
have, you know, shortcuts and I have to be fast because
Yeah.
we have so many shows.
So yeah, we're not there yet.
But no, I mean, it was a learning curve. You
Yeah.
know, I only got to that level because I was doing it every day and I do it every day.
So how do you feel like, do you feel that that's like your instrument and that like you feel proud that you're a badass at this? Or would you rather
Yeah.
just be playing piano?
No, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I love again storytelling and I love writing to picture because when you're think about it, if we're watching something and there was nothing.
Oh yeah,
like-
we've seen the sessions.
Right?
We do sessions, and when it comes to us, I was like,
Yeah.
how did you even think to put something underneath this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
love scoring to picture. I mean, I don't think that anyone would, you know, go into film scoring if they hated
Yeah.
it. It's like because you really want to do it. And I just love that idea of like you're helping tell this story because at the end of the day, stories are really what connect all of us. We're able to like the one thing I think is amazing is there can be a story that's in India that we would have never known about, but someone makes a film about it.
Yeah.
And it reaches so many people. And that's so powerful. I think
Right.
stories need to be told. We're all storytellers.
Of course, yeah.
So that's why I think it's so important. And I think music, again, it gives that emotion that, you know, maybe words cannot, you know, provide that context. So the music does.
Yeah.
So I love it. I mean, I geek out on scoring for a picture. But again, I don't think that like, you know, if you do one that, you know, you don't
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
other.
And I
think
didn't. Yeah, and my
yeah.
question, I didn't mean like that. The
Oh, like,
scoring part. I meant the
right.
technical.
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
I'm good at like Alt F2 or whatever.
Oh,
like,
right. I mean, you know, I will say like I was not an expert on the tech side of things. When I first started scoring for picture, it was in 2011. I had graduated and I was like, I want to do this, but I needed to build a reel. So at that time, I was like taking classes on lynda.com and Pro Tools and Logic,
Yeah.
YouTube tutorials, everything that I could to just learn and then just do it. You know, you just learn by doing it. And then in school, of course, big learning curve. But it wasn't until I started working for Blake. He's such a great mentor, and the whole team that I work with, everyone's so helpful. And I feel like in this industry, you have to be tech savvy.
Yeah.
Like you just have to know how to
yeah,
use
it's strange.
it.
Like nobody told me that as like part of my tabla training. I have to know like
Right.
Adobe Premiere. I got to know Logic X. I
Yeah.
got to
Right?
like I got all these Slate like analog synthesizing plugins and
And
like
then the design
all
side.
then she does all the graphic designing.
Yeah.
Like, but it's that's
But-
what we got to do.
But on the other side, on the flip side, it's like so cool because then you take everything that you're learning on the tech side and then apply it to your tabla and then
Yeah.
create something that, you know, you wouldn't have otherwise created with just tabla.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, I mean there's a perfect example of that. Like we haven't done this yet, but like we had this idea for this music video of like for me to play a tabla solo, but like the tabla solo is like normal. That's the
Right.
normal part, and then it was the filming aspect that would be
Right.
completely different. And then just to bring something new
I agree.
and fresh, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but it was the technical thing that popped the idea into my brain.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's great. I want to keep learning on the tech side of things and get the chops up on there. But knock on wood, they're pretty good now.
No,
Just
that's
because
great.
You know, yeah, just
That's great.
It's a you know, it's like a when you do something every day, obviously then it becomes second nature. So yeah.
So something like Zen, like what did like how do you write your layers? So I can tell you from our side, right?
Yeah.
our training is very sort of individualistic. It's about your instrument and whatnot,
A to
and then
B.
in those ear training exercises or like the history lessons that we got at like fast food restaurants or Denny's at 3 a.m, like that's where you kind of learned about what all these different layers in music are and how they work together and how the interludes come and how this piece connects to that piece. Um, so how do you like so for Zen, how did you put your layers together? Like where do you
Are
start
we getting like techie?
if you want, or if you're like this is boring, let's go.
No.
to-
Oh, I mean, oh yeah. I'm just making sure. Yeah. I mean, in terms of
Like where do you start? And like did you know
I
that it
get
was
it.
going to be like that, or did
yeah.
did it evolve?
No, yeah. I wanted it to be like a choir kind of feel. And you know, I mix and produce my own stuff. So I, you know, recorded the first line, but again, I always go to the piano to figure out
Yeah.
like the chord progression that I want. So then I like, you know, I had the chord progression, and I think for this one I actually like wrote out whole notes for where I'm gonna go, like each chord. And then I recorded each line, but then, you know, you start panning. You want it to, you know, it's all about how you want it to sound in your mix and where you want things to sit, you know?
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted Reginder on there, and then I had cello on that one, I believe,
Yeah,
too.
there was cello.
That's Akshaya Tucker, Shankar's sister.
Oh, okay.
And I knew exactly what I wanted them to do and play, so I wrote out their parts. Because, you know, you start humming ideas or you start thinking of ideas, and you'll play them in, but you know in your head that you know it has to be this instrument, you know? So is that the question?
No, yeah, that is,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just whatever, yeah, whatever came into your brain. That's
Yeah, I think like, you know, when you sit down, you start creating, you know, you start with the one idea and then you start building around it, and then it starts evolving. You're like, maybe what if I had this? You know, it's all experimentation, right?
And that's what the software like lets us do.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're just like, oh, will a harp work here? Nope. Figure that out,
Exactly,
right?
totally, absolutely. And the beauty of like working with real musicians is you can kind of, you know, say like, oh, let's try this.
Yeah.
And then if that, you know, or like, can you play it this way? And I think that makes a difference too, because obviously samples cannot replicate what a real person
Yeah,
can do.
definitely.
So I'm so about like always having some kind of live element. In
Yeah,
my
and it
pieces.
comes through.
Because that's where you get the emotion.
Yeah.
You know, as much as you would like try to play in strings with a sample, you can get it to sound pretty good, but it will never sound as good as a real person.
Right.
You know?
So how many layers of strings were there? There was cello, there was Reginder, but I felt there was
Yeah, those are the samples.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I filled it out with strings, and you know, then you do modulation, you do volume, all that good stuff, so that you feel like there's an ebb and flow as a real string orchestra would play. And then I had cello and violin on top and bottom. So
that was
it's
awesome.
kind of all filled out. Yeah.
And you do it all like mixing, mastering, like it's all you?
Mastering I won't do by myself. Mixing and producing and mixing everything and
Yeah.
playing everything in, I will do that, just because I'm way too nitpicky to, you know,
Yeah.
because it's if you have an idea in your mind, you just want to do it, right? For mastering though, I would always go to a professional, because like for an album, you want everything to, you know,
Yeah, work together.
exactly. It's like they're adding the sparkle. So I'll always get it mastered by a professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I want to hear more.
Thanks. Oh God, you know, and that's the other thing is like, you know, finding the time to create for yourself.
Yeah, because
It's-
you're on TV shows and like
Yeah, and I mean, and I love it, but like I've written more pieces kind of like Zen, where it's just very emotional, and because I feel like that's kind of your release, right? When you're playing your instrument, that's kind of your outlet.
yeah.
So that's how you're able to get out everything. I feel like when I was a kid, even when I was sad, when I was happy, when I was
Whatever,
you know,
yeah.
I would just go to the piano,
Yeah.
right?
That's same with me. I would just go to the tabla.
Right? And
Whatever.
that's your way.
Yeah, whatever the situation was, I would just go to the tabla.
Like if you know, if my parents heard banging on the oh, she's
Not very happy
not
today.
happy to-
Get it out. Get it out.
or if they hear something like super fun, like oh okay. But yeah, it's just it's an extension of us, I think, right?
Yeah.
Our instruments are an extension of us. So you want it to be emotional.
Yeah.
Right?
I sometimes like I don't know if you guys have this issue, but like sometimes I tabla sometimes I want a melodic outlet.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can express things in tabla, like, you know, I can express sadness and I can express happiness and all that. Like, right, but depending like on what the situation is, I can do that. But sometimes you want like that's why most tabla players sing
Most
or they
tabla
play an
players are
instrument.
Do you sing?
So absolutely.
Huh?
So
It's all in my
musical.
head. Like, so Kamaljit is my musical outlet.
So
That's
he's
great.
like he's trying to like, yeah. I have
So
to
the
like
first
bridge.
couple of years,
He's like, do it like this.
I'm like, no,
"Da, da,
that doesn't work. Like,
Right.
don't do that. Do this, and then I can't sing, right? So, and then I
You
can't
can sing.
I
You're a
can't convey it.
musician.
I can't convey it, right? So,
Right.
I mean, I can play the harmonium. So then we did that a little bit,
Well, that's great.
but like now she figured out how to get in there
Finally
and
know what
suck
you're
out what I'm
talking
actually
about.
talking about. Like,
It took me a while.
but yeah, like, so do you guys have the opposite? You're like, I just want to like play something really, I guess you could do
Rhythmic?
that, yeah, rhythmic or
You play a piano though, so
yeah.
you can go rhythm.
So you guys could
pretty-
do
right?
both, huh? All right, so it's a
I don't know
terrible
what the
question.
question was.
Yeah,
Just when the...
that was just my deficit, I guess.
I had a question though.
Yeah.
When you do you always get temp music when you get given something?
It depends on the project. So, aside from the television shows, we do. But when I'm working on my own projects, sometimes my directors will temp it with stuff that they liked. But sometimes, you know, depending on how early I'm brought on, because they know temp love is a thing, you know, like
Oh yeah,
like
Oh
if
my
they
God.
we've
fall-
seen it, dude.
Oh, right?
They're like, we temped this with like Hans Zimmer's Inception.
Right?
Can you do
I
that?
mean, I guess.
And here's like the smallest budget ever. Can you do that? You're like, no.
But wait, if people don't know what temp is, so temp music is, you know, pre-existing music that they put into the scene.
Sellotaped into the scene.
Right, and it's usually done before the composer is brought on,
Yeah.
and it's like the vibe that they want. But yeah, a lot of time because they've seen it
And had it with it so much.
yeah, they love it, and so it's temp love. Yeah, no, it really depends on, because I've had some directors who literally wanted me to write whatever was like the temp, but I've also had directors who they just let me do my thing, which I loved, you know, because like they let me watch the film as is, and then whatever I thought of when I was watching the picture, they let me create the soundscape. So it really depends.
So when let's say you watch something, whatever it is, a car chase scene or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and what comes in, what are you doing in your head? Are you singing? Are you playing piano? What are you doing?
I start thinking of melodies. It's so crazy. No one asked me that question before, but I don't know. We're all musicians, right? I feel like it's such a weird thing. Like when I'm watching something, all these like ideas will start coming to my head. I could sometimes think of the whole soundscape. Like,
so you're going big, like you think,
Oh,
like
yeah.
violins and cellos. And,
totally.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, depending on what it is, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this at this part, and then, you know, with film, you know, there's certain things you have to hit.
So not only are you thinking of like, you're not just humming, you're thinking of a violin playing this particular piece.
yeah. I mean, or depending.
So I
on
mean,
what
like
it
for us,
is.
I mean, I think in tabla is a language, right? So
Yes.
I just speak that language, so that's what I think of,
Right.
right? And
Yeah,
then
I'm just thinking in sorghum.
yeah, and she's thinking
See,
in
it's so
sorghum.
it's interesting.
But you're thinking in like
Everything.
I think-
everything.
I think orchestrally. Yeah, I mean
That's cool, man.
So
Yeah.
or like that. Let's say if it's just a scene that is very like the opposite of a car chasing. Let's say it's a person like sitting in a room or something. You know,
Okay.
very serious. That's when you're like, oh, this is this character's theme. Because I always give the character a theme, right? A motif, something that's inherently that character. That's what I think ties the entire film together.
Yeah.
Because then what I'll do with that theme, and this is where the theory comes in, you'll start morphing the theme, right? You'll make it minor, you'll make it major, you'll flip it upside down, and whatever the character is going through in the film, that's how you kind of,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So
That's really cool.
because that's what kind of, you know, ties the film together. The glue, you have to make it kind of like,
Yeah.
you have to make it cohesive. So yeah.
Do you do anything like that on your album?
Yeah, I mean, in songs, yeah, you know, you have a theme, and
But I
especially-
mean, like from track to track.
from track to track.
Is there
It
some?
depends. Okay, so it depends. So I have 3 movements in one of the, I guess it's 3 different pieces, but it's like all part of one thing. So yeah, in that sense, like it all ties together. It's kind of like like a sonata form where you're like first movement, second movement, third movement.
Yeah.
In that sense, I've kind of brought back, this melody in the third movement, or just to make it tie together. But I feel like the average listener wouldn't even realize it. It's just because.
But that could be irrelevant. Like the
Right.
fact that you did it is what's relevant.
Right. That's true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I mean, we have the album that we wanted to make. Like, it's a story that we were gonna tell,
totally.
It was a story, yeah.
and it was across 8 tracks or something like that.
That's so great.
It'll finish, hopefully
When the kids are 16, maybe.
when we
No.
have.
I always wonder like how the trajectory is. Like for the EP, it's like a sampler, but it's a story, because I started out from vulnerability to rising to being strong to enjoying the journey to finding peace, finding zen.
Yeah. So you did have the arc.
That was the arc for the EP, even though each song
Did
was
you
very
know that
different.
going in?
Yeah, I wanted it to be
Okay.
a story, because I'm so in the mindset of like, we need to arc this story. But even for the next album, it's all cohesive. The songs, you'll know, like when you hear it, it's like, oh, it's like it's the same composer, but I think they're individual. They're individual emotions, So I don't know if the next one is as it's I don't know if it's like a story from A to Z, but I haven't finished it yet, so let's see.
Yeah. That's really cool. Because we come, again, from our Indian classical thing. I've been in studios with like some of the greatest classical musicians ever, but that's a different thing, right? Because they're booking a studio, you're drinking tea. All right, you want to go in? What should we play? Let's do Raashi Kulkarni. All right, fine. Let's go. And they just go do it. So that's different. But like, our album is not classical. It was
Everything.
I was gonna ask. Yeah, I was gonna ask.
It was
And
across
then
multiple genres and like
Cool.
Like there's a hip hop track, there's a dubstep track, a blues track, a string.
So what's the story? I mean,
Us.
that's
Our
very
story,
cool.
so-
Oh, I love it. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool to incorporate different genres of music and
Yeah.
make it one story.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because we like all the genres.
Right.
Plus, we wanted to like learn how to. We were on, as you said, learning on YouTube. The curve of learning is so epic. So that's what our curve was as well.
Yeah.
We wanted to learn how to do not just the Indian classical stuff, but I want to make tracks, but I don't know how to use Logic. So
Right.
let me start learning this stuff so I can get good at my storytelling. But then, oh no, I don't know how to make this. How do I make this sample work? So just learning, knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes.
So because we listen to everything, so that's us.
Right. I
So
love
we
it.
wanted to just chuck everything,
Put everything
in
in
and see
there.
what happens.
I love it. That's what makes you different, and it's like the beauty of making music.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a very cheesy line. Oh God.
That's what we're gonna title this episode.
Cheese.
Oh my God.
I think that's a good place. That was a great place to stop because
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the chat.
And you're
so
welcome
fun.
back anytime.
Thank you.
Let's not let this be a one-time thing.
For sure.
Thank you again.
Thanks
Look
for
up
having me.
Raashi Kulkarni on our website and find us at Absolute Focus. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Yay. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button.